Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into the work of Dr. Julie Smith. She's a clinical psychologist who's been shaking things up by taking these incredibly useful concepts from therapy and making them accessible to literally everyone.
So, let's start with a feeling I'm pretty sure we all know. That feeling of being stuck. Trapped in a loop of anxiety or some bad habit you just can't seem to break. It's like you're running on a script you didn't even write, and you have no idea how to stop it.
And this is the exact feeling that drove Dr. Julie Smith to do something different. She realized that some of the most powerful tools for just navigating life were basically locked away behind the closed doors of a therapist's office. And her mission became, hey, let's get this information out in the open.
So how did she do it? Well, she took these proven, evidence-based tools and brought them to one of the most unexpected places imaginable. TikTok. Yeah, you heard me right. It sounds a little wild, but it turns out it was exactly what people needed.
Because the core idea here is so simple, but so powerful. Things like understanding anxiety or managing a low mood or building real confidence. These aren't just for a crisis. They're fundamental life skills, just like learning to cook or manage your money. And she believed everyone deserves to have them. So, let's get into one of the biggest ideas she shares. It's this concept that our lives are often run by these invisible rules that we follow without even realizing it. And it all starts with something that psychologists call core beliefs. Basically, these are the super deep assumptions we have about ourselves and the world. They're usually formed when we're kids, and they just hum along in the background of our minds, quietly shaping how we react to everything, especially when we're stressed out. And this chart just lays it out so clearly. You see how those deep beliefs create these really rigid, almost impossible rules to live by. Like, if deep down you have this core belief that I'm not good enough, you might create a rule for yourself that says, I must work harder than everyone else. You can just imagine how exhausting that would be, right? It's a recipe for burnout.
Okay, so seeing this is one thing, but how in the world do you actually change it? Well, the key isn't to just force yourself to stop or to just be better. It's actually about building awareness so you can see the cycle for what it is.
So Dr. Smith gives us this really clear 4-step path. First, you just learn to notice the pattern after it's already happened. That's it. Then, with a little practice, you start to catch it as it's happening. And that moment, that little gap, that's where all the power is. That's when you finally get a chance to make a different choice. And this brings up a huge question, right? Once you start breaking those old patterns, how do you decide which way to go? This is where understanding the difference between goals and values becomes your personal compass. Dr. Smith makes this really powerful distinction. A goal is a finish line. It's a destination. You get the promotion, you run the marathon, and it's done. But a value, that's not a place you arrive at. It's the direction you travel in for your whole life. And here's why that matters so much. Goals come and go. Sometimes you hit them, sometimes life gets in the way. But your values, they are your constant guide. They answer the big question, what kind of person do I want to be no matter what's happening around me? That's what gives life a deep sense of meaning.
Okay, so that's the big picture stuff. But what about right now? What about when you're just in a terrible mood and thinking about your life values feels a million miles away? How do you pull yourself out of a funk?
Dr. Smith's advice here is a little bit counterintuitive, but it is so effective. When your mind is just spinning out with emotion, trying to think your way out of it is often the absolute hardest path. The much faster route is through your body.
So instead of getting into this big mental wrestling match with your thoughts, you do something physical. You go for a brisk walk, you put on a song that you know lifts you up, you can even just sing out loud. These things can create an immediate chemical shift in your brain and your body.
But out of all these physical tools, let's focus on one that is so powerful because you can literally use it anywhere, anytime, and no one has to know. And that's your breath. It is a direct line to your nervous system, like a remote control to calm down that fight or flight response. And a fantastic technique for this is called box breathing. It is so easy to remember because it's just 4s all the way around. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. You can trace a square in the air or on a window to guide you. It is a simple, discreet way to totally reset your system.
Now, all these individual tools are incredibly powerful, but they all point to a larger, more fundamental truth about how we create lasting, meaningful change in our lives.
And honestly, this might be the biggest takeaway of all. We tend to think that change has to be this huge, life-altering moment, But in reality, real, sustainable change comes from the tiny, consistent choices we make every single day. We totally underestimate the power of small, repeated actions. And this applies perfectly to something like building confidence. You don't get confident by waiting around to feel confident. It's the other way around. You build it by taking small, manageable steps into situations that feel just a little bit uncomfortable, by being willing to be without confidence for just a moment.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. Forget the huge grand plan for a minute. Just ask yourself, what is one small action, one tiny thing I can do today that moves me toward a value I hold, toward the person I really want to be? Because that's where the real journey begins.